G'day everybody, Simon here, Explosive Action. I am back for an 80s metal vinyl update. Got 4 speed and thrash metal bangers to take a look at, so let's get into it. As is usual, a reminder that this video went to members first. You can join the channel for 99 cents a month, get early access to these videos, talk with me in the comments. You never know, we might have some exclusive videos in the future, but press the join button down below. So I haven't managed to pick up many good 80s vinyl for a while, probably because I'm being a little bit more picky because there's so much stuff that I have actually seen come across my lap, but I'm like, I've got it, I've actually got it, I've ticked that one off the list. Or there's things that are like, I could get that, but I might hold off a bit longer because it's sort of like B tier. I can wait a bit, just never knowing, when the next A tier thing's going to come around the corner and demand my wallet to open a bit wider. So, yeah, these 4 kind of represent me being a bit glad that I didn't go and splurge on some sort of good but not mandatory stuff. These things were far more interesting and some of them a little harder to get. So the first one particularly was one I've not actually seen show up locally for a while. It doesn't go for huge money or anything, but it doesn't show up locally. And this was the latest one to come in. This is Holy Terror, Terror and Submission, the first album from the LA thrash band Holy Terror. This was released in 1987 on Under One Flag. Very, very speed metal sounding thrash. Definitely more similar to Agent Steel than I'd say a band like LA's Dark Angel. And it's for pretty bloody obvious reasons, because this is the band that Agent Steel guitarist Kurt Colfert, I think is how you say his name, formed after Agent Steel split. So, I mean, I didn't know that actually going into this. I'm listening to it going, this is pretty much on that sort of speed metal kind of Agent Steel kind of thing. Let's look it up on the archives. Oh, and that would explain why. So, also I'd say definite similarities with, like the very first Hallows Eve, Tales of Terror, German band Paradox, Product of Imagination, their first one. Not so much Heresy, but, the first album, that kind of pace. Like, it's not full throttle all the time. The rhythm is pretty frenetic in its picking, but the overall pace, the drums don't generally do much in the way of double bass work. Just opting for sort of just general speed overall, but not being like full throttle or anything like that. It's also not super overly produced. Flip to the other side. Great, I like that art. I mean, I would have actually preferred that on the front, to be honest. That's cool art. That's good stuff. Production wise, I guess it's more similar to something like Show No Mercy. Very analog, very tape recording kind of. It's pretty obviously that kind of stuff. The guitars are pretty special, of course, as you'd expect from Kurt from Agent Steel. The bass does get a bit of prominence for those that really like listening out for the bass. It's played cleanly, adds some variation, not always just following along with the rhythm. And generally a peppy pace all the way through. Like I said, not full throttle, but it's got a good pep to it. Vocalist Keith Dean, he's really good. Where is he down here? Let's have a look at the band. There is Keith Dean there on the vocals with a bullet belt, Holy Terror shirt. I mean, there you go. You've got Mike Alford there on guitar and I guess secondary vocals there. Floyd Flannery on bass, with a bit of Anarchy shirt on. Joe Mitchell here on drums, I got to say, he's looking a bit Lars with that look. And Kurt Kilfelt here, the main guitarist, also in a Holy Terror shirt. So looks like they got their bandmade, like they've run off 20 copies, single color kind of demo era shirts. That's kind of cool. But anyway, back to the album. So vocalist Keith Dean, he's got grit to him, but he's got a good range too. He does hit some highs. So that also makes me think it's a little bit more speed metalish than just sort of rough thrash. I think when it comes to Holy Terror, I mean, all the tracks are good. Like, this is not what I'm going to go through and pick through all the tracks. They're all pretty consistent. There's no duffers. There's also nothing that's like, that's the mind-blowing track. Not for me. It's just all generally good. For most people, when they think Holy Terror, they think Mind Wars. I do. I always did. That's the one I've had on LP for a little while now. Not huge amount of time, for about 2 years. and that's the one I always liked the most. But this is the one I always had. I had this on CD, and I didn't think much of it at the time in terms of like what CD I had. But when I was going through it, because oh, I've got the original LP now. Let's go see what CD I've got. I don't need it anymore. I'll trade it on. And yeah, I ended up I had a Russian bootleg, and when I looked on Discogs, it was really interesting because there's only one single album release of Terror and Submission on CD, and it was like a 1993 or something Japanese CD. The only other way to get it properly is in box sets, and I think there's been like two sets of like here's everything Holy Terror, go different cover, all that kind of stuff. But the bootleg Russian CD I had this cover, had sort of this artwork and this track list on the back of the front booklet, and then the rear cover of that CD was unique to the bootleg as far as I could see. Like they'd gone and found out the font and done their own typesetting, and it looked really good, really sharp and clean. Except Blood of the Saints, they had typed out as Blood of the Samts, Samts. I mean, yeah, I suppose. If you don't know your English, you're a Russian bootlegger, sure. And that's what's listed on Discogs too. If you go find it on there, you'll find the bootleg with the Blood of the Samts mistake. So, anyway, like, probably got to say that was one of the best bootleg CDs I ever had. I didn't realize it when I got it. It's not looking like photocopies or anything. It's got under one flag on it. Pretty good looking one. And I passed it on to somebody, and they're happy. They know what it is. They're happy because, yeah, as I said, you can't really get a single edition of this album on CD except for the '93 Japanese press, and that goes for many hundreds. So anyway, back to my new prize, this LP though. Yeah, happy to have it. There's a lot to love on Terror and Submission. I do prefer Mind Wars, but it is a consistently just good, speedy album. I kind of don't even feel like calling it thrash. It just does feel like an extension, like a slightly more angrier Agent Steel is really what I get with this one. 9 tracks, 42 minutes. You do get the thrash collage. There you go, with a big Holy Terror bass drum. I mean, this is an absolutely bloody enormous. That's huge. And there's the other demo shirts again. The Holy Terror written down there on the wall. Good stuff. There's the lyrics. And yeah, just a nice black LP. There we go, under one flag. Look, it's yeah, really shiny, clean press too. So I got this one from the Searchers record store in Melbourne, and that is one of 2 things I got from them on separate orders. Actually, recently somebody must have dumped their '80s collection, or a few people dumped their collection, and yeah, I'm happy to pick up 2 things from them. Good little Melbourne store there. So anyway, yeah, Holy Terror, Terror and Submission. It's not the go-to Holy Terror for me, but it's a damn close second. Second one I'm going to show is the second one I picked up from the Searchers. Actually, was the first one. I got this one first probably about 3 weeks ago. At this point, maybe even only 2 weeks ago. Exumer, Rising from the Sea. The second album from Germany's Exumer opens up with this kind of wacky, just female voice saying the lyrical content of this album may be considered offensive, and then it kicks in. I don't know if they're just being funny, or I don't know what happened there, but anyway, then it kicks in with like this big heavy riff before some very Tom Araya screams in a hella waits kind of way come in. Kind of know what you're getting now. This is, as I said, the sophomore from Germany's Exumer, 1 year after their pretty classic Possessed by Fire, released in 1986. I've always dug that one. I've had that one on LP for probably about 4 years. And this one's from '87, 1 year later. Rising from the Sea. And it's the last thing the band did for 25 years. Another one of those bands that just called it a day in the '80s, and then kind of rebirthed. Not too sure what their newer stuff sounds like. I've heard that apparently it's not too bad. I've not explored it myself, but yeah, this second one, kind of chunkier, slightly more technical album overall to Possessed. They're starting to get a bit preemptive into that 1990 thrash sound, so you can almost say a little bit pioneering in that way. Probably doesn't have the standout riffs of the predecessor, but it's still a really good slab of just Teutonic 80s thrash. Side A on this one for me is where the real money is. There's the band, four piece. Bernie on guitars, Ray Minch on guitars, Paul Arakari on vocals and bass, and Psych Bornetto there on drums. But yeah, side one, side A. Yeah, that one, the opening two punch, Winds of Death, and the track, the title track, Rising from the Sea. They're the highlights. A real quality thrash opener there. It's a great 1-2 punch for those two. Then it's got some like, I think the title track's probably the best track on the album, I reckon. So it was good that they named that. Like, if you're going to have a title track on an album, make it your best track. I think a few others have said that on the YouTubes before, but yeah, 100% agree. And I'd say it is the case here on this album. It's got some clever little like guitar tricks at the end of each sort of lyrical line. I'm not too sure I'm not a guitar guy. I'm not too sure how you describe this. Little flourishes at the end of sort of line of vocal delivery with the guitar, which is really cool. Some kind of wild sort of Kerry King-esque guitar solos in here, like the real just like the whammy, and just you can visualize him on stage just going nuts and how he belts the guitar around. I reckon that's the same deal going on here. So you get that kind of Slayerism. Third track, Decimation. That one is short, bludgeoning, and feels like it actually came off Hella Waits. No bad thing. Even has some sort of Lombardo kind of drums going on. It doesn't ultimately go anywhere. It's a short track, doesn't seem to really do much, but it does the job. But side A closer, The First Supper, is another visceral attack. Kind of feels like a longer version of Decimation. Like, you'd almost say that Decimation just took in a deep breath and then just finished off with The First Supper. Might work better for you if you think of it that way. But it's a strong side A. And then we get on to side B, and it is the lesser half of this album. That's why forever, as long as there's been records, there's always been that reference of, the B-sides, because that's where you put the lesser tracks. And it's not terrible or anything, but it is where they put the lesser tracks for me. The opener, Unearthed, that's decent enough. It's got a good riff, a little bit uninspired. Shadows of the Past after that is similar to side A's The First Supper, so it gets a bit of speed back to it. Vocals are spewed out on that. The riffs are kind of blazing, so that's a bit of a step up. But then, oh dear, we have to focus on the next two tracks. There's a snotty 2 minutes long stupid track called Are You Deaf? With a question mark, with some really rubbish blasting in it. Like, let's just try this new thing called grindcore, and it's sloppy as, it's really bad. And then after that, there's this very daft sort of tough guy anthem, I Dare You, with really stupid lyrics and pointless swearing in it. Both of those tracks are kind of fillers. They're not great, honestly. And they're sandwiched between far better tracks like Shadows of the Past, and then the album ender, we've got Ascension Day. That one goes right for the jugular. So we're back in the saddle there. Yeah, Shadows of the Past, good. Ascension Day, much better. But Are You Deaf and I Dare You, yeah, they're just not great. They really aren't. They do let it down a bit. So, I've heard for the years a lot of people saying, yep, Exumer, all you need is the first album. And I kept that mentality. So I never even had this on my watch list. And it wasn't until I just saw it on the searches and it was a good price. I'm like, let's get it. And I'll say that I'm happy that I got it, because side A is like a good 80%. Side B is a good 50%. But the quality tracks bring the whole thing up to kind of, let's just call it 75. I think that's fair enough. And so I think it's pretty much in line with Metal Archive's rating. I think it's about 75 or something. It's a solid album. It's just got a few uneven tracks in there. Production is tight and punchy. That is an extra 5% there. It's a really good sounding album. Sounds very metal. It hits hard. And this is the original Disaster press there. And I love this because it came out in West Germany. That was sort of the final tick for me when I was communicating with the searchers about the pressing. I said, is this an original press? And they just sent me a photo of the back. And I went, yep, West Germany. You're getting something legit. So, yeah, it's a good album. It's just not up there with the first one. And it's got a couple of duffers. But, whatever. Can't have perfection all the time. Good lyrics there on the inner. Action in West Germany. This is a pretty claustrophobic thrash collage there. There's like 200 people on here. Yeah, some wild, punky looking stuff going on here. Looks like a drumstick up the nose. Perhaps don't do that one. Yeah, it's just fun looking stuff. And then here we have, yep, pretty clean looking LP on the Disaster label out of West Germany. Same as the first album. First album was on Disaster out of West Germany. And yeah, I'm not too sure what the go is with reissues at the time. I don't know if there was any other editions of. I don't think there was. Might have been like a Brazil press or something, but I don't think there was much in the way of options at the time. Pretty sure it's all been reissued now. But yeah, happy to get the OG of this one. Probably going to skip those silly tracks on side B, but otherwise, Rising from the Sea, it's definitely better than what people say. There's lots of jokes and stuff about, oh, I should have stayed submerged and things. I don't think so. I just think there's a couple of tracks where they could have paddled a bit faster. Next one's a bit obscure. We're going to a one and done band out of Portland, Oregon. This is Gargoyle with their self-titled Gargoyle album from 1988. This is a pretty solid slab of US power metal. Into a little bit speed metal, not thrash at all, but in that US power metal style, paying a lot of lip service to Hellstar, Omen. You catch my drift there. Definitely a Hellstar. In fact, by 1988, I mean, as I said, this is their debut. By 1988, this is a kind of, I don't want to say dead style, but I mean, thrash has really taken over. Death metal starting to get born very soon. US power metal 1988, if this is how you're starting off, yeah, it's a little bit late in the game. But looking at it from me here in 2025, going through the record crates and finding obscurities, it's a fun thing to land on. So yeah, I found this one on Discogs. I had this one on my watch list for a while. I'd actually forgotten why I put it on my watch list. Who suggested I put it there? I think I worked it out, but yeah, it showed up this on the same day as another record, and I'm not going to name that other record because bloody Brendan Von Doom snagged that one from under me. But it's all right. I got the Gargoyle. And anyway, like I said, this is US sort of speedy power metal, four piece focusing on very powerful but pretty melodic riffs. Definitely, specifically Nosferatu from Hellstar, getting a little bit techie in their style. Lots of rolling double bass work, which always pleases me. And very good soaring vocals from Tim Lockman, the vocalist. Let's flip it on the back. Have a look at him. He's on here somewhere. There he is. Look at him, singing to the sky, looking very Iron Maidenish there. They're actually all looking incredibly British. Gotta say, that's some British hair right there. Bit of a mullet going on. Yeah, great guitar passages and trade-offs. I mean, there's only the one guitarist on this one, lead guitar, Kevin Sanders, but they must have done backing recordings or something, because yeah, there's sort of some trade-offs that happen in there, so he's like playing against himself, I guess. Metal Archives said that they do have a second guitarist. I think they might have got back together and done something newer, have a second guitarist. I think I read that right, but at least here, yeah, one guitar. And yeah, the first two tracks, particularly on this, Nothing is Sacred and The Burning, they just rip. They're just good, speedy US power metal tracks. And you may have noticed, if you've been looking at the screen here, the name of the third track, Aryan Diplomacy. Yeah, I don't really know what's going on here. The songs around it are sort of like demons and battles and things like that. And then we have Aryan Diplomacy. And it... lyrics. You can read the lyrics on the Metal Archives. It's the Aryan way. Stand with pride. Wait for the day when the filth that surrounds us shall no longer stand in our way. So not too sure what's going on with that. It does kind of stand out amongst the other tracks. And musically, it's a bit more sing-along, crowd anthem-ish kind of thing. Doesn't have all the great licks, so they've gone with those lyrics, and that's not even a particularly standout track for me. I did look around. I didn't find any particularly revelatory article about Gargoyle doing a split release with Desterma. So I like to think of it as just kind of just lyrics. They're just taking on another third person angle of a story, the same way they talk about demons in another story. I don't know. I'll just go with that. It is followed by another ripper, Final Victory. That brings back a bit of a gallop to it, which is good. And then side A closer, Look Homeward. That one kind of slows down again, almost to powered ballad territory, but it does have a menacing, slower riff to it. But then side B, Out from the Shadows, we're back on the horse, galloping along with some peppery double bass quartets. I really like that. So like yeah, that's more my style. I do like to hear that kind of thing. I'm always focusing on the drums. It's just where my ears go. I always focus on drums versus anything else. Dark Mirror Dream, that track, and that comes up next is another bit of a cracker, especially the latter half towards the solo and everything around it. They get quite musical on that. I think it's really good. And then the next two ones, we've got Blind Faith, another bit more of a foot stomper rather than a head crusher. It's fine enough. But the album ends on Down to the Ground, which has a great frenetic riff that powers it. It's got a really good riff underlining it, even if the song's not the fastest on the album. So, yeah, that wraps up Gargoyle. Now, yeah, the last two tracks, a bit of a strange dichotomy lyrically there when I looked them up. Blind Faith, a song seemingly about the issues in having blind faith, and Down to the Ground is basically preachy Jesus metal. I mean, they like as in pray down on the ground. Like it's all over the map. Like the lyrics on this thing, I don't know. They just it feels like they're just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. You know, like yeah, like I said, nothing is sacred. The lyrics, nothing is sacred here. There's just some demons over here, some supremacy over here. Like it's just all over the map. I don't know, but in 2006, there was, the band Wild Dogs. They had a really good, solid album, Reign of Terror, in the late 80s, one that I would like to get. Haven't managed to find that one yet. But in 2006, that band released essentially a covers album of this entire thing. This whole thing, they, I guess, re-recorded 2006. And probably because at that point, Wild Dogs was 3/4 of Gargoyle. Minus the vocalist, we are essentially Gargoyle. So they re-recorded this thing as a Wild Dogs album. As I said, it is they renamed the Aryan Diplomacy track to American Way, and I don't know which one's worse. I don't know if they're like if this is confirming things or otherwise. I don't know. Lyrically, it's the same. It still has the lyric in there about the Aryan Way, even though it's called the American Way now. Okay, I don't know. I really don't know what's going on. It's puzzling in a way. But puzzling song aside, this is a solid. I reckon it's a solid 80% album for me. The faster tracks and the more musically expressive tracks are the more interesting tracks. The vocals are really good. He soars above everything. He's probably about 10% too loud in the mix, but he's a good vocalist, so that's great. And you get the impression too, and I think the other reviews for this album kind of land on the same mark, that what we really wanted, what would have been really great, is a follow up to this album where they focused on all the stuff that worked here, a bit more technical, and went into that. And we could have had a really, really good follow up album, like a really, really good one. As it stands, we just have the one album, and it's got some issues and some lyrics, but we will never know, really. I don't think we're going to see anything else from them, unless Reign of Terror somehow does more. I don't know. But anyway, this came out on New Renaissance. Interesting cover. Bit of a gargoyle going on there. 1988 release here, New Renaissance. I think it's the only release that... There was a CD at the same time. It's funny with 80s CDs. They're either going to be the world's most expensive thing or dirt cheap. This actually lands in the kind of dirt cheap. There you go. Maybe not dirt cheap, probably about just standard retail CD price, but you can get that pretty cheap. The LP, though, this one typically goes for a bit more, but I got a decent price on this one. Oh, there is an inner. I'll show the inner. There's your gargoyle with your special thanks. And yes, I am Satan. Okay. Whatever. Anyone who has had the incredible good fortune and superb musical taste to buy this album, thanks and enjoy. Well, there you go. And there's your lyrics. Aryan Diplomacy. I don't know. But what I do know is that it is a solid 80% album from Gargoyle. It's a fun one to have. I like getting these obscurities, these one and done bands, and this is just another solid one. So yeah, check it out. Gargoyle, self-titled, 1988. Children gather around the burning. And saving the personal best for last, this one is a ripping, punky thrash album from 1987 was high on my wants list. Finally showed up. Violent Force, Malevolent Assault of Tomorrow. Out of Germany again, smashing out of the gate this thing with a constant double, and I mean constant double bass barrage. It just doesn't stop. The opening track, Dead City, literally doesn't stop pounding the entire track. Fantastic. I mean, I'm all about that. There was a, back in the '90s, there was a heavy metal magazine in Australia called HM Hot Metal, stupid name, and I bought one. And they had a review in there for Morbid Angel Domination, and they gave it an average to negative review, and there was a line in there they cited why they didn't like it, which was that the double bass didn't stop. 15-year-old me was like, oh yeah, double bass doesn't stop, and that's why I bought it. So hey, works for me on Domination, it works for me on Violent Force. The vocals, gritty and snotty. Yeah, there's a nice snarl to these, a lot of attitude. Guitar's very choppy, particularly in this first track. And just to reinforce that there's that punky aesthetic, the clean bass guitar, it gets moments to shine and do its own thing, very much in that punky bass kind of riff. Like, I know it's my Australianism coming through, but this is like Frenzel Rom kind of stuff. Like, we're a decade before that, but like they'll be thrashing along and then it stops and you hear this and it's just clean bass. And you punk guys, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know how to describe it very well. I just hear Frenzel Rom, which is funny to me. But yeah, they do that a few times on the album and it just ticks the punky box. But that makes them sound like sort of a power trio punk band. But they are a four-piece and another 80s band that just had the one album. The second track, we'll flip it over. There's the band. I mean, they're looking very kind of like British punky thrash here, aren't they? They are looking that. Look at that. He's so snotty. He's like, yeah, what's up? He's going to glass you. That's what's going to go on there. So yeah, second track, Soul Bursting. That rips in with an incredibly Slayer riff before it turns everything Sodom. And we hear that a lot on this thing. It is German. When the lyrics kick in, it just double, like it was fast, very Slayerish, and then when the lyrics kick in, it's just like nah, Slayers for wimps, and they just Sodom it. It's just bang, 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 bang. Even has the rototoms, like that wonderful '80s production, and the sort of, I think it's rototoms. I love that sound. Igor Cavalera, he was a big abuser of the rototoms, so good. Title track, shortened here, MAOT, Malevolent Assault of Tomorrow. Guess they couldn't fit it in a typeset. Mayot. That's another real ripping track, just similar to the last one, just smashes you in the face. And interestingly, for this kind of band, side A closes with a 5-minute instrumental. What about the time after with the question mark? 4 minutes 58. Instrumental. And that's, yeah, I was surprising to hear that from you. You don't look at this band and go, 5-minute instrumental. You really, really don't. And they it starts off a bit slowed down and they're exploring things musically. Then they just amp it up a bit. It gets faster and they're still doing sort of musical, creative things. And then at the end of it is just controlled chaos. There's like 3 distinct movements in this song. And the last, I loved it. I really loved hearing it too. The last notes on this track sound like Copenhagen melodic death metal, like at the gates, but 8 years earlier. Just that sort of style of riff. You'll hear it. Listen to the last 30 seconds of that track, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you hear that riff style. So that was really cool. Side B's opener, Sign of Evil. I mean, that's such a Sodom kind of track, right? Very similar to Side A's Soul Bursting, very Sodom Persecution Mania again. I mean, I said that song title, right? But it does have that snotty, punky edge again. The bass guitar does that clean sort of Frenzel thing again. I don't know what else to call it. I'm just calling it Frenzel. The second track, Violent Force, the band track. I mean, is that what you call? You get the title track is what you call your album, your track if it's named after the album. What do you call it if it's the artist track? If you call a song after yourself, Violent Force, artist track maybe. That one is 3 minutes of just chaos yet again, just absolute mania. It feels like a dramatic take of like piece by piece. Really feels like that, but adding on some European leads. That really is sort of the difference here with these guys. So like, I'm more comfortable saying they're closer to Sodom than Slayer, because Slayer wouldn't do the kind of European style melodicisms that these guys would do at the same time that these guys have dug into the Alskabomb's kind of Slayer punk, Sodom punky stuff at the same time. This side B kind of follows the same, Sodom, Nuclear Assault, a bit of Slayer again, sporadic moments of musicality thrown into it. Destructed Life, another good example of that one, second last track. And the album ends with SDI, the S standing for a word you can't say on YouTube anymore. We'll just say unalive. YouTube. The first minute of that is total like Disposable Heroes. It's like a repeated single note, bang bang, like it's very Disposable Heroes. And the drums are a bit more relaxed. But then, just like the others, they've gone, oh, hang on, Agent Orange, and then just smash into it and belt you out of the park with thrash-tastic riffs. So yeah, this is a pretty manly thrash album. Big skull on the cover, looking sort of destruction-ish going on there. Not in love with this, to be honest. I mean, this blown up and just the logo, I probably would have taken a bit more. This is kind of weird, but whatever. 80s, man. Take a look inside. Lyrics are all kind of like a weird, I don't know if it's handwritten or a weird handwritten font. Kind of matches the band's logo. Bit hard to read, but you get that. Same on both sides. A bit of damage there. The LP is coming through. I probably shouldn't be putting it inside the inner then. Check it out. And yeah, just Roadrunner black. And it's got a few surface scuffs, but it doesn't sound it. Sounds and looks like a strong VG+. I've given all four of these a nice bath, and they've come up quite well. This one's probably the one that's had the most wear and tear. The Exumer sounds brand new. But there you go. Original Roadrunner press of Violent Force. Malevolent Assault of Tomorrow. Been after this for a while. Thrilled to have it. And that's it. They're the 4 80s metal speed US power thrash metal bangers I'm going to be showing in this update today. Like I said, it's been a little bit slow coming getting these things. I've got a mountain of death metal there that I've not gotten to, and I've realized I actually haven't done a standard just here are some death metal LPs I picked up update this year. By this time you would have seen one that was smaller, but there's a lot there. So, and black metal, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, but all newer, kind of things. But yeah, the 80s stuff has been a bit few and far between for me at the moment because I'm a little bit picky, and a lot of the stuff I'm seeing I've already had, and that's fine. But I'm going to put out, because this worked, when I put out the Please VCLT Help Me about Sodom Persecution Mania, VCLT helped me, and I got that album. And I'm going to say this one again, I did say it, but I am really on the lookout for an OG 80s press of Toxic Think This, their second album. So if you can help me out, do help me out. Let me know. Hit me up on the Instagram. It's probably the easiest way to grab me. Toxic Think This. Need an 80s press. Need. It's a need at this stage. It's no longer a want. But yeah, if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe. Consider joining the channel, 99 cents a month, and get early access and perhaps exclusives in the future. Check out this guy. Check out this guy. And I'll see you next time.